Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all so much for coming today. We really appreciate your interest in our program. If you are, if you want to, if you know anybody else and you can see them on the list of attendees or sorry, on the thumbnails of who is participating in today's webinar, feel free to use the chat to introduce yourself or say hello. We have a record of everybody who is here today, everybody who registered, and where you're from. When we get to the end of our presentation about the certificate program, we'll have a little bit of time for questions. And so if there's anything that we cover during the presentation that you have a follow-up question about or want us to come back to, we're happy to do that. We'll also share with you at the end our email addresses, Borshika's and mine. And so you can always email us if you have additional questions that you didn't want to ask in the setting of the webinar, but you need answers to. And if we can't answer them, we can get you answers from our graduate school as well, if it's things about applications or whatever it might be. So I'm going to share my screen and then start us off by introducing myself and having Dr. Rabin introduce herself as well. Let me get this shared. We are really excited to have all of you here. We are going to be talking today about the graduate certificate program in dissemination and implementation science at the University of Colorado. We'll tell you a little bit more about it. Our goal is really to give you an overview of the program and the information that you need to determine if you're interested enough to apply and what you would need to do if you did want to apply. I'll start off just by introducing myself. I'm Tina Stutz. I'm an associate professor of pediatrics here at the University of Colorado at our Anschutz Medical Campus. And I'm also an implementation scientist in ACCORDS, which is the Adult and Child Center for Outcomes Research and Delivery Science. It is co-sponsored by the School of Medicine and Children's Hospital at the University of Colorado. And it is a health services research transdisciplinary center in which we have a D&I science program led by Dr. Russ Glasgow with a lot of excellent D&I science faculty who are a part of that program. My background is that I've been doing implementation research for, I would say, probably about the past 14 or so years, and have been directing this program for several years and teaching in it since I came to the University of Colorado about 5 years ago. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Rabin to introduce herself.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I am very excited to be here today again to talk about the certificate program with Tina, Dr. Stutz. My name is Borshika Rabin. I am an associate professor at the University of California, San Diego, and I'm also co-directing our dissemination and implementation science program there. I moved from Colorado many, many years ago now, but I remained connected with the team, and I'm a founding co-director for this program. It is very hard to leave when you work with wonderful people and you see the excitement from students who are part of the program. So hopefully we will entice you to be part of this program next year. My background is also in implementation science. I was trained as a PharmD, turned into a public health researcher and an implementation scientist. Over the past 20 years, I have done a lot of methodological work and applied work in the VA health services research, but also in the public health context. And I am most passionate about capacity building for implementation science. And this program is certainly one of my favorites in the broad universe of doing this work. So thank you so much for being here. And I will hand it back to Tina, and then we will tag team this presentation. We will present slides back and forth.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Borshika. So this slide just gives you an idea of the administrative side of our program. So as Borshika mentioned, she and I are co-directing the program. Jordan Crawford, who you've received emails from, is our program coordinator. He's excellent and keeps in touch with all of our students to let you know about events and deadlines and coffee talks and all sorts of stuff that we do in the program. Over on the right side, the interesting thing about our certificate program is that even though it is part of Accords and part of our Accords D&I science program, and all of the faculty, or the majority of the faculty, are faculty in that program, we're under the umbrella of a clinical sciences graduate program, which is within our CTSA. So the Colorado Clinical and Translational Sciences Institute, the CCTSI, has clinical sciences degrees, a master's and a PhD, and we are under their umbrella. So all of our course listings, for example, have CLSC as the first four letters that come before the number that designates the course. So because we're lucky enough to be under the CCTSI, we have lots of administrative support from Galit Mankin, Amanda Whiting, who's not on this slide, and Lisa Chikudo, who leads that clinical science program within the CCTSI. So we are our own program, but we are under the CLSC program. And so when you receive communications, if it's regarding registration or graduate school issues, it's usually from Galit and Amanda. And then when you get kind of content and course selection sort of information or guidance on what you're taking, that's usually from me and Borshika and Jordan. This slide just highlights our D&I science faculty. So as I mentioned, most of our faculty come from our D&I science program here at Colorado. We have a really strong program that does consultations, contributes to the field, develops interactive tools, writes thought pieces, and actively conducts implementation science research in a wide array of topical areas. This slide has added faculty almost every year because we put a lot of effort into the classes in the certificate program. We want to make sure that everyone who's enrolled is getting really good feedback and a really excellent training in D&I science. And so we are deepening our bench all the time to make sure that we have people who are able to dedicate the time to teaching the classes and providing that important feedback to you as you develop your work. So Russ, who I mentioned before, is the director of our D&I science program at Accords, and he is one of the instructors in the certificate. On the rest of this page, I won't run through everyone, but I will say that Jody, Monica, Bethany, Katie, Anna, Meredith, Nikki, and Amy are all here at the University of Colorado. They have all taught or co-taught classes in the certificate program. Up in the top right, we have Ross Brownson, Allison Hamilton, and Katie Wilging, who are all three outside instructors who we brought in for their expertise in specific areas to co-teach classes with us. So we have connections, across the CU campus and through the CCTSI, but also through programs where Borshika is at UC San Diego, with the VA in multiple locations, with Washington University in St. Louis. So we're really lucky as a program to have a really great network of people to draw from. And Borshika will talk a little bit when she's discussing our intro class that one of the benefits of this is that we get to bring in amazing speakers to our classes. And so often we'll be reading articles, and then the person who wrote that article and sort of leads the effort in D&I in that area will be somebody who comes in and spends, half of the class period with us, and you get to interact with that person and ask your questions live with them in a small group. So it's an amazing thing to have these connections and this kind of network. The presentation that we're going to go through right now is really to answer these what, who, why, where, when, and how questions. So Borshika is going to start us off with talking a little bit about what D&I science is in the context of this program, what it is that we teach. We'll talk about who should pursue this certificate and why, a little bit more about how we deliver these courses and what the content is and who teaches them. And then we'll talk at the end about the application process. So when the application's open, how do you apply, and a little bit more of that kind of logistical information. So let me turn it over to Borshika right now to give us a nice intro to the topic we're talking about.
Thank you so much, Tina. This is going to be really just for those of you who might be newer to dissemination and implementation science. Most of you are already coming in based on our experience with baseline expertise in D&I, but we do get students who are just very new to this. And so we wanted to make sure to be on the same page. So we provide here the definitions of dissemination and implementation research. from the PAR that you can apply to actually to NIH for DNI science proposals. And so we distinguish dissemination research, which is more of a targeted distribution of evidence basically to different types of audiences. And it focuses on how do we package our interventions, our evidence, and how we deliver it to these diverse individuals. And an implementation research, which is much more well developed in the field is much more developed in terms of the methodology, the measurement, there are more examples, is focused on the adoption and integration of this evidence into specific settings, and the settings can be very diverse. And then also the sustainment and scaling of those efforts. So most of the research that you will find published will be in implementation research. There is an increasing interest in dissemination research. If that's your area, you are definitely in a novel area, but we are focused on both of these areas in our certificate program. And if we go to the next slide, just wanted to provide you with very brief background why we care about dissemination and implementation science. Again, most of you will be very familiar with the leaky pipeline, which is on the left side of the slide, indicating the ways that we lose evidence over time. Some of them are very justifiable. Not everything should be disseminated. But then the right side tells us the real story, that it takes on average 17 years to get 14% of evidence into practice. And when we look at newer research in these numbers, for example, in cancer prevention and control, the numbers have not improved too much since the first publication of this article in 2000. So we are still taking a long, long time to get very little evidence into practice. All of those dollars that are spent on research are not being turned into the benefit of the community, the population, locally, nationally, and globally. We also know, and there are some publications here, but there are some other studies out there, that if we put in actual concerted efforts, if we work hard, we can actually increase the 14% to 80% and decrease the 17 years to as low as 3 years. And with COVID-19 vaccinations and how they came about, we know that those numbers can be actually even lower in terms of the time frame. So if you go to the next slide, I also wanted to talk a little bit about where we position ourselves. Many of you will be familiar with the translational kind of timeline, the T1 to T4 translation. These are used very commonly in medical schools and CTSAs. The whole idea is that most of the DNI work is happening in this T3, T4, so late stage translation, where we are already in possession of something that was tested many times in the lab and in small, more controlled trials. And now we are in the process of making population health impact. We do like to argue as implementation scientists that we have a role even before we get to T3, T4. So we have work, and we talk about this and we teach you these things in these earlier stages as you are designing for dissemination and sustainment. And so if you are more in this earlier phase and you are interested, do not drop off yet. Continue listening, because we think that there are ways that we can incorporate implementation science and dissemination science into your work as well. Next slide, please. So why did we create the DNI Graduate Certificate Program? This is actually from the very beginning. This was our rationale where we set out, and we continue to believe that this is still valid. We believe that we still have local and national need for more training in DNI science. We do know that training are growing in number, but we still have many, many students applying to this program every year, and we can't accept everyone. We also know that, as Tina mentioned, we have really good resources locally and connections with others who are willing to join us forces. And so we want to leverage these networks and local resources and basically knowledge that we have to impart it to all of you who are interested. And again, as Tina mentioned, we are benefiting from a lot of DNI leaders who come in as guest lecturers if they are not formal or official part of our program. Next slide, please. Our educational philosophy also has not changed. We believe that this level of learning is not for busy work. So we are creating a program that is hopefully tailored to your needs where you are. We have had students coming from very different backgrounds with very different needs and goals. And so far, I think we have been successful in adjusting the expectations while maintaining the core functions of the programs and making these programs and classes very relevant to the students. That's certainly one of the feedback that we get, that they get very personalized feedback and guidance, and it fits with their personal goals. We are keeping the classes very small. As Tina mentioned, we are bringing in additional faculty as needed. It's usually between 10 and 16 students, and most of the time it's two instructors who are teaching the courses. I think it's actually all of the time, and sometimes it's three instructors. So you get a lot of personalized attention. You are assigned to one of the instructors for direct feedback. And we really want to balance that theoretical learning. We want to give you that theoretical basis, but then immediately have you apply it. So we are not doing busy work. We are really thriving to get into where you are in your research career and get you forward. And so we will tell you a little bit more about how we do that with specific courses. We can go to the next slide. We are using a competency-based program, which is very exciting, and we continue measuring how you are doing on going from A to B in terms of your competencies. The competencies are based on published literature, so you can see here a couple of publications, but we have actually a newer set of competencies from Amy Hipschman and myself and Russ Brunson and others that we also look at and consider. These competencies include a variety of more basic or intro level to mid and advanced competencies, and they are mapped onto the different classes. Next slide, please. So the requirements are to complete 12 credit hours to get the certificate, the graduate certificate. As Tina said, this is a graduate certificate. This is not a certificate that you get a certificate of completion. It's a formal graduate certificate. And so we have pretty strict kind of guidance on what counts to be done. And one of them is the 12 credit hours. We do have 3 required courses. You can see how they are distributed in terms of credits, 2 3-credit hours and one 2-credit hour course. We are going to tell you a little bit more about each course, but if we go to the next slide, in addition to these 8 credit hours, you have to take 4 more for electives, and we offer a number of electives. The electives that are not listed here will need to be approved by the certificate director, Tina, and they will have to come from Colorado, University of Colorado. So they cannot come from other institutions. We can speak to that as well a little bit more. Next slide. So I will talk a little bit more about the DNI intro course, which is Tina and I co-teach that for the past 4 years, I think 4 or 5 years now. And then Tina will talk about the other courses. So this is the course that you will most likely take first when you come into the program. It's offered in fall. It is 3 credit hours. You will feel that it's 3 credit hours because we have a lot that we cover and a lot that we ask you to do. We are covering basic models, methods, and measures in this course. We are getting you ready for the advanced methods course, and we are providing you with an overview of the field. You are working through some DNI grant or QI project, hopefully one that you are actually planning to submit. And we go through a number of topics, including sustainment, the implementation. We had years when we had QI focused class. We do health equity in addition to the more traditional DNI basic topics. We have a really kind of blown up unit on DNI models and how to operationalize them. And we are discussing to do the same with strategies. So it's kind of a course where you will get the basics and then you will move into more advanced work. We have, as Tina mentioned, a lot of nationally known guest speakers who come in and present in this class, and they have been doing it for years. So we have a very good connection with them. And again, it is a great idea to come into this program with an idea of a research project that you want to develop. And then I will hand it over to Tina.
Thank you so much, Borshika. I will say I have been so lucky to co-teach this class with Borshika. It is an amazing class because we typically get students with a really wide range of topical areas, as Borshika mentioned earlier, and it's amazing what you can learn from people in other fields. So we'll have, people in psychology, but people who are surgeons, public health. We have just a really wide range, and this class gives the opportunity for everyone to sort of learn the core features of D&I and really dig into some of the frameworks, get an introduction to sort of the wide scope of the D&I science field, but also work on their own project and learn about each other's projects. And so it's a really, really fun course to teach every year. The next class that I'll talk about is our Designs and Mixed Methods and Implementation Research class. This is our second required class. It's a 3-credit-hour class offered in the spring. The instructors for this class over the years have shifted. We have kind of different people each year, mostly because this class is pretty intensive around mixed methods specifically. And so we give tons of feedback on your designs and your approach section that you're working on. And all of our faculty who teach this class are really successful researchers themselves who have expertise in mixed methods. So we've rotated people through over the years, and it could be any of these people who might be co-teaching the class. We were really lucky. I think we've had at least 3 semesters where Allison Hamilton has been the instructor. She's at UCLA and at the VA. And if you've read any kind of mixed methods papers in implementation research areas, she is one of the leaders in the field. Katie Wilging is joining us this year to co-teach that class. Similarly, she is at PIRE. I think it's Pacific Institute for, I don't remember the complete name of PIRE, but she is another mixed methods expert who is coming in to co-teach. So this is a great class. In this, we do an in-depth examination of study designs. So we include quantitative, qualitative, and mixed methods designs. And the kind of tangible thing that you come out of this class with is a D&I method section for a research proposal. So as Borshika mentioned, there is no busy work in any of these classes. Our goal is that whatever you are doing for class assignments and getting feedback on is something that is going to end up in an application that you're working on or a manuscript that you're writing. So the focus is really to give you very usable products from all of the classes that get tons of feedback from your instructors as you go along. The third required class is Designing for Dissemination, Sustainability, and Equity. So this course is taught by Dr. Bethany Kwan, and then she has different co-instructors come in. So Monica Perez Yolis was the last co-instructor that she had on this class, who has a really strong interest in health equity and co-design. So this class really focuses on what Borshika was talking about earlier. When you look at that T1 to T4 spectrum of where D&I fits in, that if you haven't thought about dissemination and implementation early in the process of developing and testing different interventions or programs or policies or whatever it is that you're working on, if you haven't started thinking about that earlier, it's really too late to start thinking about that when you actually try to implement it, because that's where you run into all of the barriers that really are the reason that we have that 17-year gap and very small proportion of evidence-based interventions and programs that make it into usual practice. So this class really focuses on engaging with partners, thinking like design thinking, fitting to context, and planning for equitable implementation and sustainment from the start, so that you have been working on this all the way along. You don't just take something that's been shown to be effective and try to get it into usual care. You have been thinking about what needs to happen with both the context and the intervention or program all along. This class, Context and Adaptation in D&I Research, Borshika and I developed this class together and co-teach it together. This one is an elective. It's a 2-credit-hour class taught in the spring. And so if you are a traditional kind of efficacy effectiveness researcher, the concept of adapting and not necessarily abiding by like strict fidelity guidelines is horrifying. But in D&I, we recognize that adaptation happens all the time, whether it's planned or unplanned. And so this class gives you a really in-depth look at specific D&I frameworks that focus on context and assessing context, meaning barriers and facilitators at multiple levels, and figuring out what you need to do to adapt the context and the intervention or program itself to fit in different settings and be able to be implemented, so be implementable. This is a really fun class. We talk about all sorts of adaptations, including cultural adaptations, that tension between adaptation and fidelity. And again, the work that you do in this class helps you think through how you're going to plan, describe, track, and evaluate adaptations that may be made throughout the course of implementation. This class is a big hit. This is our grant writing for D&I science. This one is co-taught by Russ Glasgow, Ross Brownson, and then Anna Ma joined them this past year. It's typically a small class. It meets in the summers. It's 2 credits long. The goal of this class is really to take everything that you've learned across all of your certificate courses and work on an actual application, culminating in a mock study section at the end of the summer semester. So it's an amazing class. There are so many things that Dr. Glasgow and Dr. Brownson have learned, both from chairing implementation science study sections, working at NIH, just being kind of leaders in the field. So this is a great, all of our classes work on things like specific aims and background and significance and approach. This class is pretty nitty gritty about grantsmanship and what you should and shouldn't be including in your implementation research grant applications. And then this is the last formal elective that we offer. This is Advanced Research Topics in D&I Science. It was developed by Amy Hubschman, who was the original founding director with Borshika of the certificate program. This is a 1-credit fall class that is really, it's an opportunity for a very small group of students to get together with the course instructors and look at the emerging literature in D&I science and how it relates to your topics of interest. So if you're a methods person, you focus on methods. If you're a topical person, you might be looking at things that are happening that are developments in the field within your actual either medical, public health, social science, education, psychology, whatever your field is. And it's structured more like a journal club than an actual class. So it's a seminar, really, I would say. It involves selecting, reading, discussing journal articles, attending some of our Accords D&I Science program meetings, which happen a couple of times a month and are chock full of D&I researchers, both from CU and from elsewhere, doing a research presentation, which is generally about your own topic and some recent literature relevant to it, and then peer critique so that you get to know the other students in the class and their areas as well. Oh, and let me go back really quickly before we get to these testimonials, but we do also have other ways that you can earn those 4 required elective credit hours. So most people take the context and adaptation class, the grant writing class. Some also will take the advanced research topics class. We have a class in systems thinking that is offered by Meredith Fort, who's one of our D&I faculty over in the Colorado School of Public Health. And that is something that is possible to take as an elective, as long as it's being offered in a way that you can take it. So if you are not at CU, it needs to be offered remotely to be able to take a class like that as an elective. There are other classes that are offered through the CLSC that people take as electives, like there's some ethics classes. And if you're actually in another program at the same time here at CU, like if you're in a master's or PhD program, we sometimes can coordinate with your department so that you can take, for example, our classes as electives for another degree that you are pursuing, as long as you're meeting kind of the goals and competencies of both of your programs at the same time. So there's flexibility. We also offer some independent studies when people are looking for a very specific thing that they want to work on during a semester and have someone who can mentor them and work through that. We can arrange independent study credits as well for the optional elective credits that you have to take. All right, now I'm going to turn it back to Borshika. One of the things we have worked on is getting feedback. We're big on feedback, and we make improvements to our classes and to the curriculum pretty continuously over the course of the 5 years that I've been here, and we plan to keep doing that in the future. So we've had the opportunity to get a lot of excellent feedback from people that we thought we should share with you.
Thank you so much, Tina. And we are primarily sharing the positives here. We are also taking constructive feedback, often to make changes to the course delivery. We have done that regularly. I know that Tina and I have changed our course almost every year in some ways, including the one that I mentioned, that we are now going to expand our focus on implementation strategy, operationalization, the fact that we increased our focus on theories, models, and frameworks. All of those are changes based on feedback from the students. But here are some that we thought you might find helpful as you are thinking about how this program was useful for others. You can hear from Nikki Wagner, who became now a certificate faculty, actually, from CU, who described her experience with the program as something that helped her transition from her primary focus on effectiveness work, although she had some pragmatic intervention trial experience, into dissemination science, and submitted proposals, got funded proposals as a result of working with the program and the program faculty. The second one is talking about the course, the program as helping you actually take what you know. So you will bring in your own expertise. In this case, Doug is a great expertise in creating predictive models for clinical care, but then realizing that implementation science will help you actually implement those predictive models into care and use them in a sustained manner. And so there are a lot of individuals who come in with very, very high experience in their field that Tina and I might not even be familiar with, but then the methodology of implementation science help them take it to the next level to create programs, predictive models, different types of products that can be easily or relatively easily implemented and sustained in actual clinical or community settings. We can go to the next slide, a couple more. You can see here from Parag the idea that remote learning was very successful. He was joining in from New York City, and he was able to very quickly translate what he learned in the program into actual applications. And we see that quite often. Individuals come in with ideas and they turn into actual proposals as we work through the course of the first course, second course, depending on where you are. And then finally, Sarah Kennedy talks about how the certificate program supported her in understanding theories, models, and frameworks. Those of you who are newer to D&I, you might find those super overwhelming. However, they are critical components of a successful implementation science proposal. And so she certainly found that that was helping her, as well as thinking about designs, measurements, adaptations. And so you can read for yourself, but all of these are showing how people ended up focusing in the direction of actual securing of funding. We do have participants who are coming more from the evaluation angle, and their purpose is not to necessarily get federal funding, but to get funding within their institutions to do a system-wide evaluation. And those examples also exist. So we have a lot of different learners, but certainly the biggest chunk is your traditional, would like to get federal funding eventually. The target audience is, primarily T3, T4 translational researchers. However, with the caveat that Tina and I mentioned, that we are very happy to explore, if you are not seeing yourself in this role, whether this program would work for you. And then most of the time, individuals come from health services, community health, public health research background. Again, the topics are very diverse, the settings are very diverse. If you are in doubt, do not, again, drop this, come and talk with us, and we are happy to talk this through with you. Why would you choose this program in different career stages? Key awardees are obviously, if you are in that stage, you might be seeing this as a natural fit. Many people write this into their career development award as a training goal to complete the certificate. That also provides you with funding. If you are coming from out of state, that might be very helpful to you. And this is seen as a positive thing in a key award career development training goal, because it's a very structured and powerful program. Mid-career and senior faculty might come because they want to become their homegrown local faculty expert in D&I. We have received a lot of applications from individuals where their local department or institution did not have D&I expertise, and they felt that they could become that person that will can become the seed in their institution or in their department. And then we have received PhD and Dr. PhD student applications. This is lesser in number, but a very appropriate, especially a more advanced PhD student, where they might choose this as their minor concentration. If they are at CU, that's a possibility. Or they might just test out whether doing D&I science could be a side gig in their own research or become the center focus of their research. And so we have seen all those different variations. We will get to the questions as well. I will just flag that I see the questions and we will get to those. In terms of the format, all of the courses are offered via Zoom, online, synchronously. So you do have to be available at the time of the course. And I would say that 95% of the classwork is actually synchronous in terms of we are very rarely having classes where you work on your own and then you advance the learning that way. We do have homework, we do have assignments, and you do work separately as well as in consultation with your instructor. So that's true, but the classes are mostly synchronous. And Tina already mentioned the academic home, so I'm going to just skip that in favor of leaving more time for discussion. And I think this is a time for me to hand it back to you, Tina. Is that true? Okay.
That is right. I'm going to go through just some logistical information about the program, credit hours, application, tuition, that sort of information. To apply to this program, if you have not, I think you have been to register for this, actually. Sorry, I'm like going in circles. You have been on our website if you are registered for this webinar. So go back to the website. There is a section about admissions that you can click on that has 3 different sections and a ton of information under it. So Jordan has worked hard on keeping all of this information updated over time. Many of these sections are going to link back to the graduate school since this is like a graduate certificate program, and many of the requirements for the program are actual graduate school requirements rather than our D&I science faculty's requirements. This is where you'll find, this is basically where you start, is go to our website, go to the admission requirements. Each year, the application cycle opens on January 15th and closes on February 15th. I can never get an answer about what time on February 15th it actually closes. So I would advise you to pretend that February 14th is when it closes so that you don't wait until the 15th and the portal, which is not controlled by us, suddenly closes. So the application cycle is open for a month. It will open next week. There's only one application cycle per year, and it is always for the cohort of students who will begin in the fall, the following fall semester. The minimum requirements, and these are the official minimum requirements, are at least a bachelor's degree, a minimum 3.0 GPA, and there are no prerequisite courses that you have to have already taken to be admitted into this program. So you don't have to be from a certain field or have certain methods courses ahead of time. When you actually get to the application process, it's the full online graduate school application to CU Anschutz that you'll be completing. And then there are some specific parts of that application that we have included because they are how we make our admissions decisions. One of those is that there are 2 statements of interest that you'll be writing. I want to encourage you, if you're here, to put some effort into those. I think that several years ago, at least, I think that there were some applicants who sort of just thought it was a formality and didn't think too hard about these, and then they didn't get into the program. And the reason is all of our applicants are amazing. So we have really good applications. And so something that can set people apart from the others when everyone has kind of like a comparable educational background, everybody says they want to learn about D&I and why. Everyone had good grades, which, I mean, we're all kind of graduate school or beyond graduate school now, so good grades are great. But what we really care about is like what you're doing and what it is that is kind of pushing you forward and motivating you to, at this stage in your life and career, to actually be willing to go back into a graduate program. So it's a certificate, but it's still graduate level classwork, and it does take some time and commitment on students' part to complete the certificate program. So these statements of interest, they're very short. They're longer than they used to be, but they're still only 250 words. So try to kind of pack a punch in there and make sure that we understand what it is that you're hoping to get out of the program and why you would be someone who would really contribute to these classes and discussions. We also require you to give us your CV or your resume, transcripts from your highest completed degree. That's a graduate school requirement. If you're a physician, you have to include your undergraduate degree transcript. And then there is a section about how this program will fit into your current responsibilities. This is also a really important section because, again, based on prior experience with students in the program, the classes are synchronous and the workload is set. And so we need to know that you're actually going to be able to do this. So we offer an optional kind of upload of a letter of support, which could be from your supervisor, your chair, whoever that might be, who can give us some assurance that you are being allotted time to complete this program. So if you're planning to do this program completely outside of all of the work hours that you do, and it's not part of a K, it's not part of your training, that's fine. Like lots of people do that. But what we want to know is, are you going to be able to come to these classes? They're mostly during the day. So, I would say that Denver time, so we're 2 hours earlier than the East Coast, 1 hour later than the West Coast. Most classes take place between 12 and 6 p.m., somewhere in that afternoon in Denver timeframe. And so if you are in a job where they're not going to let you do that, then this program probably won't work for you. So it's good to know that ahead of time. And then for us, it's good to know that you have thought about this. And if you're accepted, you're going to be able to actually attend classes and complete the coursework. There's an application fee, which is on here. And when you go to this website, these are just highlights from the website. There's information about international student requirements. If you have any transcripts from non-US institutions, there's a different fee if you're applying internationally. We've had students from Canada before, so we include all this information just in case. But basically, if you go to our website, you will find the link to the application. There are instructions that Jordan has compiled for how to find the right application. So this is an online course, but we're not listed with the online courses. So if you encounter frustration about finding the correct application, so you're going to go to this non-degree graduate studies, you're going to say certificate, and then the D&I certificate program will pop up. You can't see it today because it doesn't show up until the applications are open on January 15th. Every year we have people who can't find it. So if you can't find it, just email. Galit Mankin is our support person over in the CCTSI under the CLSC program, and she will help you find the correct application. If you email me, I can also help you find it, but she's probably quicker than I am in terms of giving you that kind of logistical help. The tuition costs are the same as any graduate courses at CU Anschutz. So we follow the same tuition as that clinical science CLSC program. So they haven't posted the tuition for next year yet. It typically goes up, I would say about $20 a credit hour each year is what it seems to go up when I look at the trend over time. So this current year, if you were an in-state resident of Colorado, it was $580 per credit hour. If you're out of state, not a resident, it was $1409 per credit hour. And as a reminder, you need to take 12 credit hours minimum to complete the certificate program. If you happen to be someone who works at the University of Colorado, not necessarily as a faculty member, but if you work here, you may be eligible for the tuition waiver, which is something that you can look into and explore with Galit, with the graduate school, and with your section or department that you're in. This link will take you to this year's tuition. And then if you're, for example, writing this into a K application and need a budget, I would just bump it up. I would kind of recognize that it probably is about $20 per credit hour higher each subsequent year. So the application is going to be available January 15th. There is a link from our website to it. You don't have to go directly to the graduate school website to find it. Ours will take you to where you need to start the application and select which application you're completing. They'll close on the 15th. On our end, we have all of our D&I science faculty are involved in the review process. So we aim to complete our reviews usually by early April, and then you will be notified via email of your status. We let you know regardless of what the decision is. So we will not be ghosting you. We will let you know. So the three possibilities are that you're accepted to the program, that we decline your application, or that you are on a wait list for the program. And so that wait list factor is that can take a little bit longer to find out if you're going to get into the program or not. But we try to let you know as soon as possible. And the courses all begin in late August 2025. And I want to just thank that there's a ton of people whose work goes into maintaining this program and improving it every year and building this really great community of new D&I researchers or D&I researchers who are really kind of elevating their games by being in this D&I certificate program. So Accords has been a big support to us. All of our faculty who are really committed to kind of bringing along the next generation of D&I researchers and who are excited to share their areas of expertise with all of you. Jordan, who does an incredible amount of program administration for us, and then our CCTSI and graduate school. This next slide has our email addresses. So these are for general program questions. If it's about content, should you apply? What do the courses cover? That kind of information. Email me, or K applications, like should you be including this, all that kind of stuff you can send to me. If it's about the application process, graduate school requirements versus our requirements, tuition, all that kind of stuff, that would be something for Galit to answer, and she will answer quickly. Let me stop sharing. And we have about a little under 10 minutes, I think, that we're planning to spend. And I can see I have not had the chat open,
I
and I
am
see
ready
the
to
chat
answer
chatting
one of the
along.
questions while you address Tina, look at the other questions. So
Okay.
I will start with the question about what is the optimal time to apply if you are thinking about using it as your key training goal. I would say we have seen a number of different variations. We have seen when people already had their key award and they wanted this program to help them launch the actual program. If we are thinking about including it as a training goal, though, you might want to apply anytime, starting now through the application to the K. Again, sometimes it takes a moment to get your K funded, and we had people who wrote it into their application, didn't get funded, get into the program, started the program, and then it was still part of the training goal, which is fine because it takes a while to complete. So I would say that just think about what would be best for you, and we can figure out working with you how that fits with your goals. That's kind of my recommendation. I don't think there is one way to do this. And then I see that there was someone who is sharing their experience that they wrote it into the training plan and now applying to the certificate after the K was awarded. So that's one of those examples.
I would also add on to that if that is your plan, if you either have been awarded a K, have a K that's currently under review, or are planning to apply for a K, haven't gotten it in yet, and this is part of your training plan, it's helpful if you mention that to us in one of those kind of open response questions on the application. It's good to know if this is part of a formal plan that's already been funded or something that you're working toward. And I would agree with Borshika, you can build it in to your application before you have even applied to the program. The timing sometimes can be a problem though. So if you, for example, since we only accept applications once a year and it's all to start in the fall semester, you might want to apply before or at the same time as you're applying for your K so that if and when your K gets funded, you're accepted to the program already. The other kind of caveat I'll add is that certificate students have priority for enrollment in all of our courses. Sometimes we take, especially for the intro class, if we have space, we will allow a couple of people, usually from the CLSC program, to take that class as well, even though they're not in the certificate program. However, that's rare. So something that is not likely to work would be not applying for the certificate program, getting your K funded, and then wanting to take the intro class before you've actually been accepted to the certificate, that's not likely to work because we probably won't have space for you. So, if you're accepted to the certificate program, you're definitely in the intro class in the fall semester that you want to take it in. So that's just something to think about. There's so many questions in the chat. Okay, let's see. Borshika, what do you see?
There is another one related to the timing of application. So if you are wanting to pursue a master's in clinical science
Oh,
through the CCTSI, would you be able to apply the credits from the certificate toward both degrees? And Tina, this is one that I know it's a sticky one, so I will let you answer.
this is a little sticky. You can, and people have done it successfully. And it just requires you to connect with both, it might be Lisa Secudo, it might be somebody else, whoever is kind of advising you about your CCTS, your other CCTS program, and with me at the same time, and Galit, because there's a timing issue. So, for example, if and I can't exactly remember which way it is, if you graduate from one of them before the other, there can be an issue where you can't double dip classes. So typically they try to have you finish both at the same time, or at least not apply for graduation from the certificate before graduation from the master's or PhD program. There is just a tricky little thing in there, but it's worked. We have plenty of people who have done it. The only time it hasn't worked is when somebody didn't realize that they needed to have those conversations early, and then they finished one of the programs, and then the graduate school would not let them double count classes. So you just want to be on that right away. Make sure that everyone knows your plan, and everyone knows when you can graduate from each of the different programs.
And
Let's
then I will share another question, Tina, about timing of the classes and the credit hour load. So the classes are, as Tina mentioned, usually during the day. We tried very early morning classes, thinking about clinicians. They were the first ones to ask us not to do that again. We had classes where we started at 7 a.m. I was sitting here at 6 a.m. in California. I am very happy to do that, but the students didn't like it. And so we moved back into more kind of the natural during the day timing, and that's seems to work for people when they have enough notification. In terms of a 3 credit hour course, our course with Tina, the intro, it takes an hour and a half each week. So we go from end of August through beginning of December, and every week we meet for an hour and a half. And that has been, during the day from 12 to 1:30 Tuesdays, but we change it a little bit each year. So that's kind of the workload in terms of in class.
And then out of class, it's a pretty reading intensive class. That intro class, you're covering a lot of material over that first semester because we're really trying to give you an introduction to this broad scope of what D&I science is. And according to the graduate school, their estimate is that for every credit hour, that's 3 hours of outside classwork. So from the graduate school's definition of a 3 credit hour class, that would be attending class for an hour and a half and 9 hours of out of class work. I don't think that that is how much it takes. I think that it sort of depends on people's reading speed and ability to finish their assignments. There might be weeks where it's that heavy, but I don't think that any weeks would really be that heavy. I think though that it's probably a safe bet that it probably takes 3 hours outside of class. That's just my kind of guesstimate to read all of the articles. You kind of respond to them on this discussion board in that class. And then you have additional assignments, which are all writing assignments that you'll work on. So some of that depends on your efficiency and how quickly it takes you to read, process, and complete assignments. Liz's question. Oh, you're muted, Borshika. Do you want to?
I just wanted to flag this for you, Tina. There was a question about being accepted and then can you defer if something comes up? So if you might.
So we have done that before for people, for example, who did not have a source to cover their tuition. until a K gets funded, for example. So we are able to do that. We have done it before. It affects our class sizes. And so we just want to know as early as possible if that's your plan. We would love to work with you. So like if you are accepted to the certificate and you have to resubmit something, or your university is taking time to determine whether they can support your tuition expenses, we have done that before. We probably don't like aim to do that for more than one or two people a year, just because it does affect then we accept more people, but then there's kind of like a little bump. So it makes it hard to kind of plan class sizes going forward. But if you need to do that, just let us know so that we can take that into consideration really while we're planning for the incoming cohort.
And then the last one from Liz is, do we have in-person opportunities for connections? And I would say we have really encouraged everyone who comes to the DNI conference to come up to us and meet there. We have not organized the DNI certificate attendee or program graduate meetings there. We might do that in the future. And we do have virtual, but outside of classroom opportunities, we do coffee hours each semester where we bring in one topic where we can talk about it at different levels of the program. People come in, and then also we talk about general program logistics. So those were some ways that we connected with you all.
I think there was also a good question, and then I'll wrap this up just to not keep you guys longer than we said we would. The class schedule, like the actual hours that classes are offered each semester, they're not always the same. So for clinicians, this is sometimes just a pain point because you have clinic hours, for example, and so your ability to move clinic hours, get coverage for clinic hours, whatever it might be, it's generally a semester ahead that we know what the next semester's schedule is. So Borshik and I have taught our classes at about the same time, usually on the same day, like Tuesdays midday is usually when we teach the intro class and also the context and adaptation class. Other classes, especially when we have an outside instructor, like our designs and mixed methods this year, this spring, that class is from 4 to 5:30 on Tuesdays, and that's because our external instructor has other responsibilities, so it's easier for her to co-teach later in the day. So sometimes there is some movement in depending on who is teaching the class and when it is offered. We try to have that information available as early the semester before as possible to give people ample time to work on their schedules to make sure they can attend. There's also no sequence required. So the intro class is the first class everyone takes. After that, you can go through these classes in different orders. So you don't have to do the 3 required classes first, for example. You can shift around depending on what works for your schedule at a different time. You also can take semesters off if there's a semester that you can't do that time, or you have a massive thing going on that it's just not a good time to take a class. You're able to miss a semester or two here or there, which is why it can take up to 3 years to finish the program. Some people have finished the program in, I think, a year and a half is probably the quickest anyone's ever gotten through it. I think that's it. We will be posting this recording on the website, I believe. And please feel free. We're easy to find on the website. Please feel free to email Borshika or myself or Jordan with questions, and Galit Mankin with questions about the application process that I can't answer that you might want to ask her. And I think that's it. Thanks so much, everybody, for your great questions, and thanks for the time and your interest in our program. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.